Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Kmart, and I want to talk about some basketball. And today, we've got something brewing trade-wise that is pretty damn interesting. I personally thought things were going to maybe get a little bit quiet with the draft being tomorrow, but the Celtics, the Clippers, and the Wizards decided they don't really want to do that. They'd rather maybe stir the pot, make some news, and give us something to talk about here today. So, why not talk about it? There is a potential three-team trade that is brewing that, according to sources, is highly likely to go down. Again, between the Celtics, the Clippers, and the Wizards. In this deal, the Celtics would get Kristaps Porzingis. The Los Angeles Clippers would receive Malcolm Brogdon, and the Washington Wizards would get Marcus Morris and what the tweet is calling draft compensation, which almost certainly means picks, but the specifics aren't there, so I think they didn't necessarily say picks in all of the tweets and reports that went out there, but basically picks for the Wizards. So that is the deal as we know of right now. It hasn't really been sort of finalized. There's a lot of moving parts here. Danilo Gallinari may need to be included for salary matching purposes. Porzingis needs to opt into his player option so that he could then be traded. There's all sorts of stuff that's still getting looked at here, but the trade seems, according to people in the know, highly likely to go down. So I figured why not take a little bit of a look at it. Just a brief one, because it is a three-team deal, so we're not going to deep dive every single angle, but I do want to talk about this one because, folks, this seems like a trade that on the surface actually benefits all three teams, which in a three-team trade, three-plus team trade, is kind of rare. A lot of the times when a third team gets involved, they're kind of maybe doing a favor for another squad, eating salary or doing something along those lines. But it does feel like all three teams get something that they want out of this trade. So with that in mind, we'll dive right into it. We'll start with the Boston Celtics, who would clearly be the biggest winner of this trade. They would get Kristaps Porzingis in this deal. Porzingis averaged a career high in points in the previous season, 23.2 points per game. Also got 11.4, wow, 8.4 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 1.5 blocks, and shot 38.5% from three. So impressive offensive numbers, solid defensive numbers, right? I don't think Porzingis is getting any defensive player of the year votes, but he was serviceable in that department as well, not just looking at his scoring. Effectively, Porzingis serves as a bit of an upgrade from Al Horford that the Celtics had been looking for. Horford has obviously been on that team and able to contribute, but he is sort of getting older. His efficiency is dropping pretty much every year. So Porzingis is a sizable upgrade on the offensive end, and we mentioned he was sort of solid on the defensive end. He's still, 7+ feet tall. He still has that length and that reach. He is someone that they can combine with Robert Williams III on the defensive end, and you've got yourself a front court that very few teams are going to want to mess with, right? A lot of sort of rim protection and size inside that the Celtics can take advantage of. So clearly, they get themselves a whole heck of a lot there. And then, in terms of what they're giving up, Malcolm Brogdon, potentially Danilo Gallinari, and I would assume at least some of the draft compensation that the Wizards are getting would come from Boston here. But none of that really hurts them much, right? They've been stockpiling assets from back when Danny Ainge was the one running the show for their front office. Brogdon and Gallinari didn't really, I'm not going to say didn't really play much, because Brogdon did play quite a bit for the Celtics, but he was sort of losing his primary spot in the rotation. He didn't start any games for the Celtics this last season, so they are moving players that were not necessarily a part of their long-term plans anyway. So the Celtics get a potential third star to pair up with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and they've got a trio that they think, or have to think, if they make this trade, can go out and finally get them that championship that they've been so close to these past couple of years. So for the Celtics, all seemingly working out for them. On the Clippers side of things, they're the team that maybe people had the most questions about or were scratching their heads a little bit, right? They lose Marcus Morris. They're going to get back Malcolm Brogdon if this deal goes down. Most people would say, right? Is that a great move? Is that a sort of just lateral shift for them? Maybe not a better trade, but just a trade. And yes, honestly, I think that is kind of the case. Brogdon and Marcus Morris are not exactly players that are massively different in terms of their skill set and in terms of their contribution, but you have to think about the context of what's going on with the Clippers here. There were reports that Marcus Morris wasn't the happiest with his role on the Clippers, maybe wanted a little bit more in the way of offensive opportunities, and he wasn't necessarily going to get it. And he sure as hell won't be getting it if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are both healthy and playing at the same time. That moves him way down the list in terms of offensive priority for the Clippers. So with this move, he gets to go to a Washington Wizards team that is likely headed for a rebuild. He can be a primary offensive option there. He has a chance in the final year of his contract to put up some stats and put something together that could attract an offer from another team for something a little bit more long term, right? So he gets to go play out his last year on a team where he's going to get to shine offensively, even if that doesn't give him too many opportunities to win games. The Wizards are, at this point, basically guaranteed to be one of the worst teams in the league after losing Bradley Beal and now potentially Kristaps Porzingis, and also losing Kyle Kuzma because he opted out of his player option. So they're probably going to be bad. But if you're Marcus Morris and you're not happy with a role coming off the bench for the Clippers and you want more offensive opportunities, this is the trade-off. You're going to have to go play for a bad team. So it is what it is. So then you look at what the Clippers get back. They get Malcolm Brogdon. He played, I think, 60-plus games for the Celtics last season. Did not check that 100%. But in the games that he did play, he shot 44% from beyond the arc. He shot 48% overall in terms of his field goal percentage. Averaged just a little tiny bit under 15 points per game. So he was still contributing for the Celtics. It's just behind Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you are the third or fourth option at best. So similarly to Morris, he wasn't really getting all the opportunities that he could. If you go to the Clippers now, you may still have a similar problem, as we mentioned for the Marcus Morris side. If Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are both healthy, you're, pretty far down that priority list, but it's a better opportunity for Brogdon because he really was not going to see much more of a role in the Celtics than what he was getting right now. So you trade a couple of players who have similar skill sets, and the Clippers don't really lose out on anything. Unless some of that draft compensation comes from them. That's going to suck maybe just a little bit if they have to sacrifice a pick, whether it's a first or a second, but you still do end up getting a player off of your roster who wasn't happy there, and you bring in someone who can match that production. So Clippers got to be relatively happy. And then we look at the Wizards here. I don't know if the Wizards are happy. In general, I don't mean with this trade, because they basically just got forced into a rebuild by Bradley Beal wanting out, but it's a move that's been a long time coming, and now it really does feel like they're genuinely emptying things out here and going for the full-on rebuild, the full-on tank even potentially, depending on just how many players they end up shifting away here. But looking at it from the Wizards' perspective, they get Marcus Morris and those picks or draft compensation, whatever euphemism that they want to use here, and they lose Kristaps Porzingis. So we kind of saw this coming. After the Bradley Beal trade, there were really only two ways that the Wizards were going to go. They were either going to bottom out and rebuild completely, trade away all of their assets, build picks, and look to the future, or they were going to try to retain Porzingis and build around him. Obviously, now we kind of know what direction that's going in if Kristaps Porzingis is being traded to Boston, but we already got a bit of a hint earlier on when Kyle Kuzma declined his player option. That player option was worth $13 million. Kuzma, obviously, is going to be capable of finding more on the open market, although the rumor is he's looking for something in the $30 million range, which I'm not really sure if he's going to get that much, but if he is looking for that kind of payday, that is outside of what the Wizards are going to be willing to give up right now, right? You don't trade Porzingis, you don't trade Beal if you're looking to give Kyle Kuzma $30 million to bring him back to the team. So he's pretty much gone. Porzingis is going to be gone. You get Marcus Morris on an expiring contract, and you get picks. And at this point, they need picks because, as we mentioned in the previous video, they didn't get much out of the Bradley Beal trade from the Suns in terms of draft compensation. They're going to get multiple second-round picks because Phoenix didn't have any first-rounders to send to them. So this could be where they get maybe some more draft compensation that should have been included in the Beal trade but wasn't. So with this, they can focus on maybe developing some of their young players. We mentioned it with the Bradley Beal trade. You know, they've still got guys like Denny Avdia, they've got Daniel Gafford, they've got Corey Kispert, guys who aren't great right now, right? They're not going to make an all-star team or anything like that anytime soon, but they were contributing to this team even when Beal, Porzingis, and Kuzma were there. Now that all three of those players are potentially gone, it clears the way for some of those younger guys to get more time, develop a little bit more, and who knows? Maybe one of them takes a significant leap forward, and the rebuild process for the Wizards gets sort of a kick in the pants and gets sped up significantly. Sort of a SGA in Oklahoma City kind of scenario. Obviously, I don't think any of those three players I mentioned are quite on his level, but something to a similar effect, to a lesser degree. One of those guys could have themselves a great year this year, could put up, 20 plus points a game, and at least the Wizards have some sort of hope, some sort of player to look at and say, here is the guy for the next couple of years that we can build around, instead of being completely and totally hopeless and at the mercy of whatever ping pong balls come out in the draft lottery for you, right? You never really want to be forced into that position. So overall, like I said, I think it works for everybody. The Celtics get their guy. They get a big man who can score, who can stretch the floor, who can play some defense. The Clippers get Marcus Morris out of there in a situation he didn't want to be in and still keep a player of a similar skill set. And the Wizards are cutting salary and building assets, right? So everybody gets, it's kind of sort of what they wanted here. Of course, this trade is not actually going through just yet. It's, at this point, highly likely, I think is the phrasing that they're using. And there are still some moving parts that need to be hammered out. But this does look like the framework for the trade. And hopefully it does go through. Because, like I said, I think everybody benefits at least to a small degree. There's no team getting fleeced here. There's no team that's just clearly the loser of this trade. And those are the trades you like to see, right? Because then all the teams get better and we won't have a squad putting up 15 wins next season like some of the stuff we saw last season. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see when it gets finalized, if it gets finalized, and what implications this maybe has for some of the other teams that had rumors going around about their own trade situations. But that is it, folks. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment. Do you think that the Tatum, Brown, Porzingis trio is enough to get it done in Boston? I genuinely don't know at this point. They've been so close multiple times here. I think it certainly can't hurt, right? But the Celtics are going for it. They are going seemingly all in at this point. And it's a gamble, obviously, but you can't win an NBA championship without taking some sort of risk. So, again, let me know what you think. We'll see when and if this deal gets done. But until then, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.